Everyone at Camp Ridgeline thought Staff Sergeant Ava Kessler was just the quiet supply clerk who kept to herself and never spoke about her past. What they did not know was that in 12 minutes she would make history and none of them would ever look at her the same way again. Ava had joined the unit 6 months earlier, transferred in from a base nobody could quite place. She kept her boots polished and her mouth shut. She ate alone. She trained alone. The younger soldiers whispered that she must have failed out of something bigger, otherwise why would someone her age still be handling inventory logs? Corporal Danny Reyes was the loudest about it. He was 22, fast with a joke, and convinced that real soldiers proved themselves in the field, not behind a supply desk. He needled Ava at every meal, calling her Clipboard, telling the others she probably could not hit a target if her life depended on it. Ava never answered him. She simply finished her food and walked back to the supply tent where a small photograph sat taped inside her locker. It showed a young girl standing beside her father, both of them in fatigues, both of them smiling in a way that belonged to a life she rarely spoke about anymore. The morning everything changed began like any other. A convoy carrying medical supplies to a mountain outpost radioed in trouble. 8 armed insurgents had taken position on a ridge overlooking the only road through the pass, and the convoy was pinned down with nowhere to go. Command needed a marksman who could hold the ridgeline from over 1,000 meters out, and the base's designated sniper had torn his shoulder 2 days earlier in a training accident. Captain Reeves stood in the command tent staring at a map that offered no good options. Every qualified shooter on base was either deployed or injured. Then Sergeant First Class Nora Whitfield, the only person on base who had seen Ava's actual file, stepped forward and said 5 words that silenced the room. She said that Kessler could take the shot. Reeves looked at the woman everyone called the quiet clerk and asked if it was true. Ava did not raise her voice. She simply said that she used to do this for a living and that she needed a rifle and a spotter and that they were running out of time. What the base did not know, what only 2 people in the entire unit had ever been briefed on, was that Ava Kessler had once held one of the highest confirmed shot counts in her former classified team, before an injury and a change in her life pulled her away from that world. She had walked away not because she lost her skill, but because she had a daughter waiting at home who needed a mother more than the army needed a legend. Danny Reyes was assigned as her spotter, more out of desperation than choice, since he was the only one free and trained enough to call distances. He climbed into position beside her on the ridge opposite the enemy line, his hands shaking as he adjusted the scope on his side. Ava lay perfectly still, breathing slow, scanning the far ridge through her rifle sight. She spoke softly, telling Danny to call wind speed, to trust her math, and to stay calm no matter what he saw next. He nodded, throat tight, finally understanding that the woman beside him was not the person he had spent months mocking. The first shot rang out and the lead insurgent dropped before the convoy driver even registered danger. Ava adjusted, breathed, and fired again. Danny called distances in a shaking voice as she worked through the ridge with a precision that felt almost inhuman, each shot separated by careful seconds rather than panic. Insurgents scrambled for cover that did not exist, and one by one they fell silent. In 12 minutes, all 8 positions had been cleared. The convoy rolled through untouched and not a single American soldier was harmed. Danny lowered his scope and looked at Ava, who was already breaking down her rifle with the same calm she used every morning in the supply tent. Word spread through camp before they even returned to base. Soldiers who had laughed at her for months now stood in silence as she walked past, no longer seeing the quiet clerk but the woman who had just saved an entire convoy without raising her voice once. That evening, Danny found her outside the mess tent and apologized, his voice cracking as he admitted how wrong he had been. Ava told him that she never held it against him, that people believe what they see, and that she had chosen quiet for a reason that had nothing to do with hiding weakness. She told him about her daughter, about the promise she made to herself the day she left her old unit, a promise to give her little girl a mother who came home every night. She said that greatness did not need an audience, and that the ridge line had never been about proving anything to anyone in camp, only about bringing every soldier home safely. Captain Reeves later recommended Ava for a commendation, but she asked for something else instead. She asked for a transfer closer to home so she could see her daughter more than twice a year. The Army granted it, and on her last morning at Camp Ridgeline, half the unit lined up just to shake her hand, Danny standing first in line. As Ava drove away from base, her daughter's photograph resting on the dashboard, she felt something settle in her chest that had been missing for years. She had spent so long believing that quiet strength meant being overlooked, but she finally understood that the people who mattered most had seen her all along. The real lesson was never about the 12 minutes on that ridge. It was about the years before it when a woman chose her daughter over glory and still found a way to be exactly who she was always meant to be when the moment finally demanded it of her. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments, give it a like and subscribe for more stories about quiet heroes who never needed applause to be extraordinary.